I want you to take a moment and think about you as a principal and about the depth and rigour in your professional conversations with your peers, your principals down the road. My backstory is principal of 21 years, if I count back, and that was through remote, rural and regional Queensland, pretty much in that area. I want to say to you that the more remote you are as a principal, and this is my experience, the more connected you are with your colleagues. It is a complete irony in our system. So in the Gulf of Carpentaria, my closest school was, I don't know, wouldn't even drive it by car because it was impassable in the wet season, but I felt more connection there with my colleagues. Some of them were on the islands and around the Cape, than what I did in my big school in Rockhampton. And as Kurt alluded to, I actually was principal at Mount Archer. I've also been principal of 2 other big schools in Rockhampton over the last 15 years. So from that perspective, I could critique what happened with collegial engagement between principals. And then this. And as a newly minted ARD in 2015, I was challenged with, how do we do that? How do we really do collaborative empowerment across our schools? So while you are grappling with what's going on between your teachers and cohorts, I'm looking across a system of schools and going, how do we truly get collaborative empowerment between our principals? What I'm going to do with you is hit on some of the research base, give you the backstory to our forum in Rockhampton, talk quickly about some of the forum features, and then some of our more recent developments, because we've kind of had a bit of a hybrid over the last 6 to 12 months. So that's at the centre of our state schooling strategy, and that was the real point of making me think about what it needed to look like. I've heard people reference Phil Riley's research. Dave mentioned it this morning, and you can go to that and it can actually confirm for you how tough our job is on the health front and the wellbeing front. The interesting thing is, go to his recommendations. There's 15. 4 of those recommendations directly reference social capital. It's directly stated. Half of them, and they're the half that I've picked out and I've highlighted in pink, half of them reference the type of work that the forum creates for principals. So if we're actually serious about taking care of principals' well-being, then the forum is the kind of space that starts to address that. And our forum journey, I guess, would demonstrate that on the first instance, there was a lot of feedback and commentary around how supported people felt in terms of their well-being space in doing the job. That was that mutual support, community of support. So there's a solid piece of research that backs up why this work is important, but it goes further than that. So just unpacking the definitions, human capital is the talent that individuals bring. So that's your quals that you've got from university, probably your experience that you possess in yourself. Social capital is the collaborative power in the group, and you'll hear Fullan use the group to lift the group. And then they also reference decisional capital, so that's your wisdom and expertise making sound judgments over a period of time. And certainly as I look back on my career, that grows with experience. When you look at our department, we're really big on the human capital, professional development, building people's capability, but the structures and systems in place to actually build the social capital is pretty non-existent. So now, what's it look like across schools? Because, as I go back to this, that's what we actually need. And that big, bold statement there, by working together, communicating better with each other, developing our people, reviewing our performance, we'll ensure our schools are among the best in the world. So it's the centrepiece of the work. One of the things I noticed is in the early days of our principal forum, leadership forum, I'm going to call it principal guilt, where principals actually felt guilty, and how could they justify being out of their school for 3 hours on a Wednesday morning and taking care of themselves and connecting with colleagues. Does anyone in the Rocky area remember that? We had to really kind of work through it and give each other permission and say it was okay. And I'm not just saying it's okay, I'm saying that the research says this is what we need to do. Jim Waterston's quote, I really can't see it shifting, and globally when I look at what's happening in other systems, principal system leaders working together is the way forward, and that's how we're going to lift across our schools. The backstory. So I told you about newly minted ARD 2015. In that year, Pete Stebbins ran a masterclass because we started down the path of doing communities of practice. And yes, there were some interesting dynamics around how they were formed up. But there was two things. One was for me. One was the experience of the masterclass where Pete actually taught us how to run different types of protocols to get the best out of people. So my original intent was, and we had clusters, don't get me wrong, there were clusters, there were groups of people getting together. My thinking as the ARD at the time was if I could get Pete in and run a masterclass to help principals learn some of these ways of working collectively, that they could get more depth and rigour in their existing clusters. I wasn't trying to make another meeting for them. So that was the original intent. We got together, it was actually hosted at Mount Archer as I recall, and at the conclusion of that, it was collectively decided that they actually wanted to go forward together as a group. So what I intended to happen was it went in a different direction, but that was fine because it was actually about meeting the needs of principals. I still recall that day, and Pete probably remembers it too, because as the principals went round and gave feedback around the training that they've had and could see the potential of what they were going forward with, it was really clear to me that it had hit a nerve and a need for them, and I actually got quite emotional because it was what I had felt as a principal as well. So just a couple of quick things. We have our agenda. Our individual leadership updates are really quite powerful, and I'll show you what that looks like, and if you're doing the training, Pete will no doubt unpack that. We typically have the hot issues workout prior to a break, and our break is often, we end up working through our break anyways. We have a PD quick share, and then we have a PD intensive. We've also had visitors to our forum, so Dave Turner has come along and sat in and participated. There he is. And Claire Mullingray from Headspace has also come, and she presented as a PD intensive. I think that was not last year, the year before. We have a constitution, and we did some work in wordsmithing that and really coming to agreement about our constitution. Some of the key pieces where this comes into play is how we welcome new people into our group, and we are constantly welcoming new people in, and an existing member will step a new person through the protocol so that when they come in, they're a little more familiar with about what is about to happen. The other piece is there's an understanding around what you do to leave the group, and we've had that happen, and I'm going to share that at the end. And the other thing too is the commitment. So we really, because of the trust that's created in the space and that mutual support, the Chatham House rules, the work that we do, we want people that are there and pretty much there every time. So there's that commitment that if you're in, and you make that commitment in your calendar. You have to have a pretty good excuse not to be there. We do allow long service leave though. This is the personal update tool. I'm not going to go into detail except to say that it talks or gets you to reflect on both the personal front and the professional front. So there is that part about looking after you as a person first and the professional piece. And in this space, we look at the challenges. So the best and worst of the last 30 days and the next 30 days and unpack that. And there's a whole lot of other pieces there too around what's important to you right now, what are you trying to achieve, and pieces too around things you need to follow up on, people you want to connect with. One of the ways that we've grown or matured, I guess, is gone from just the forum meeting, and we meet twice a term, so week 3, week 8, Wednesday morning, 7:30, be there. We still hold on to those and have kept those as they are mapped out on our agenda, but complementary to that, we've actually moved now to doing learning walks and talks in each other's schools. So at our regional conference Earlier, what was it, term 2 last year, we had the pleasure of Lynn Sharrett train a number of principals in our region around learning walks and talks in school, and there are a significant number of forum members there, and after that experience they wanted to bring that into the work. So what we now have in our forum is not only the wellbeing piece around principals, but that leadership capability and how do we support each other in our school improvement journeys. So when I asked the question around how rigorous and deep are your conversations, we now have significant numbers of people getting together and doing walkthroughs, and this is based at Warrabara. Jeff Jepson, principal at Warrabara, hosted the first learning walk last year, and it involved members of the leadership team, not just members of the forum. But we now have set up a process of how we discuss the learning walks in the forum, but then conduct the actual walk at a different time, and we've got some routines around that. And this is the learning walk at Kurt School. Yep, there's the Kurt's wall from last year, and there were a significant number of people at Mount Archer last year with, again, really rigorous conversations around what we could see in his school. And of course it's a win-win. Kurt and his team got feedback around their journey, and each of us walk away with some amazing insights and take those back to our own schools and experiences. And finally, just wanted to wrap up with Josie's exit letter. As I said, with our constitution, we have an agreement. If you're leaving the forum, then you make a presentation. Josie couldn't be at the last forum before she retired last year. She wrote a letter. This is part of it. I did check with her last year if it was okay if I could use this at any point in the future, but I just thought that her words as a retiring principal around the forum experience speak for themselves. So I'm just going to wrap it up and let you read that.